Hey, tell your dad to get in here. Yeah. Connect with that guy. Tell him he's got to get his butt in here. Tell all your friends and all your family. It's going to be a good one. It's about parenting. I'll just get right into it. I had a talk with Ambrose today. Okay. Ambrose is basically one of the coolest dudes in the universe. All right. He's this amazing 11-year-old boy. He's my little mini me, and super bright. Right. And more than that, he's a really honest guy. He's tender-hearted, but he's extremely honest. In fact, if there's ever a fight, right? If there's ever a fight, and this happens all the time, Athanasius and Teresa, they're always going head to head all the time for some reason. And if there's ever a situation where they're both blaming each other, I can pretty much trust that Ambrose is going to be honest. He's going to be an honest broker on the whole thing. And that gets him in trouble sometimes, but that's the kind of kid he is. Super smart, super mega handsome, right? Really athletic, played soccer recently, and he gets really good grades, okay? He's one of these kids that I wasn't one of these, right? My sister was, but I wasn't, that could not study, for example. She could just, put her books in her bag and not even worry about it, and then bada boom, bada bing, she's getting A's left and right. I mean, she's constantly getting the honor roll stuff. And I was the kid that could work really hard when I wanted to, right? But I could work really hard, and I'm scraping by with a C. I was the kid doing extra credit, drawing pictures of the pre-tribulation rapture for an eschatology section of our Bible class in order just to get a D minus. Okay, that was a true story. I mean, that really happened. But Ambrose is not that, right? Ambrose, he's a super bright guy, but he's been falling behind in his homework. And we got a letter from the school. We got a letter from his teacher, and she's just concerned. I mean, he's not in any trouble. In fact, for missing so many assignments, the dude is getting a B plus. It's amazing. His test scores and everything else, even the debates that he's been in, because they do debates and stuff. I don't know if it was the Norseman stuff or if it was Greek. I don't remember which one it was. Oh, it was the Iliad, because they had to debate whether Hector or Achilles was greater, and they had to give their reasons for what makes somebody great. And he did fantastic on that. So dude's doing great. Okay, he's doing totally fantastic and everything, but his homework. Not doing good with his homework. And part of this, to be honest, as a parent, part of it is my fault, right? My wife and I, that we're not being as attentive to make sure that he's getting his homework done. Especially, we need to be more attentive now because he's getting involved with sports. And so, but to get involved in sports like that, you're really kind of cutting away at the amount of time that you have in order to get your homework done. And so as a parent, I should have been better about making sure that he was getting everything in order, that he had all of his books, that everything was in place, and that he was done before he went to bed. But I didn't. And so we get this letter, and he got home, and he didn't know I'd received it. Okay, this was a surprise to him, and he was real nervous about it because I told him we had to talk. And I actually brought him right here in this room. I didn't have the pink light going on here. I've kind of got this setting. It's a little darker than normal. It's kind of more like my podcast, but earlier on, bright, sun's still out, and we're talking in here. We close the door, and, I'm asking him why he's late with his homework, and he wasn't making up any excuses. He wasn't blaming soccer. In fact, he said, "There's no excuses, sir." He's got good manners, right? Well-mannered kid. But we got talking about it. I said, why do you think your school gives you homework? Because other schools that he's been to have not. In fact, that was one of the criticisms that I had. They were great schools, great teachers there, but they weren't big about homework. And I asked him, I said, why do you think that the school Sacred Heart, where you go now, okay, it's a Catholic classical education school, and I said, why do you think they give you homework? And he said, well, because they want you to do work at home, right? I said, well, kind of, but why? What's up with that? Why would they want you to do work at home? And he wasn't entirely sure. And so we got talking about it. I said, look, they're trying to prepare you for life, in fact. Preparing you for whatever you're going to do in your life once you're out of here. We want to equip you with the fundamentals and the foundations necessary for you to do a really good job at whatever you choose to do. Okay? We want to equip you. And I worked backward with him. And I said, let's start at the end of the story. Let's go to your career, right? Or your retirement, right? And we'll just say from your retirement, you go back and you're looking back at your career. And beyond the career, coming back further to where you are now, you've got college. And further yet still, you've got high school. And then you've got 7th grade, where Athanasius happens to be right now. And then 5th grade, where Ambrose is at the moment. And I broke each one of these things down. And I said, when you have a career, you can be a wage earner. You can be an owner, a manager, a supervisor. There's a number of different things that you can be. But there's a big difference between being a wage earner and being an owner. And I said, there's for both of them, there's some overlap on things that are good for them, values and virtues that they may have that are good. I said, for example, proverbial truths like the early bird gets the worm, right? Dress for success. These ideas, be presentable. Don't go in looking like a piece of garbage, right? And smelling nasty. You don't want to be, pigpen. So I said, but these ideas are true for both groups. And I said, with each of these individuals, they have different functions. I said, for the wage earner, you're on the clock, right? You have some personal responsibility in the fact that you have to get to bed, you got to wake up, you got to get your clothes on, right? Hopefully brush your teeth, take a shower again, right? And then go to work. But when you're at work, you're kind of doing the bidding of other people that are telling you what to do. You're on the clock. Likewise, the manager is also on the clock, and they're responsible for the people underneath them. And I said, so your school, in having you do work and having you have structure and pattern in your life and making sure that you not only do things while you're at the job, right, with your boss right there telling you what to do while you're clocked in at school, that you also have a sense of personal responsibility that says, look, I gotta get my stuff done. I have to be prepared. I have to have my uniform ready to get to work. Because ultimately, this is the ultimate end, is that the school isn't just preparing them to be good students in college. They're trying to instill within them responsibility, concepts regarding leadership, ownership. If they end up being a wage earner, most of us are. Most people in the world, that's the function that they have. But the school's aiming pretty high, and it's trying to create a code of conduct in the student's life, both while they're at school and while they're at home. And part of that at home part is not just the uniform, and they have amazing uniforms. If you haven't seen them, you should check out the pictures. Super duper expensive. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, but fancy. And but it's not just the uniforms. It's making sure that you've done things and that you've dedicated an amount of time in a disciplined way to be focused, right? Honing in your attention on a project, that when you go back to that place where you're clocking in again, that you're entirely prepared. So I rolled back further. I said, let's go to college. Once again, you've got a daily routine. The difference, though, from where he is now and where he's going to be in college is that Mama and Papa are not going to be there to tell him when to get up. I mean, right now we tell him, get your butt out of bed, dude. We got half an hour. You better hurry up and go and eat your oatmeal in the morning. He's not going to have that. He's going to have the self-discipline necessary to do a good job. And honestly, most people aren't really good at that. If we're really honest about it, right, we kind of make it there. We're not always super clean. Right? We don't always have our stuff done. There's a lot of procrastination going on there. But you gotta wake up. You gotta get dressed. You gotta make your food. You gotta go to class. You gotta go to work. And sometimes these schedules are really crazy, totally tough. And so you have to have the ability, the wherewithal, and the pattern of behavior instilled within you over a period of time. If you want to excel at this, not just to scrape by, but to excel. On top of that, a lot of kids, they play sports. Most of them have to work, but one thing they all have in common is homework. Essays, research papers. problem solving, memorization. And I don't know where I read this, but I think it holds true that by and large, when kids go to college, they're dealing on average throughout the year. If they were faithful to do homework, it would average out, reasonably so, to be close to about 2.5 to 3 hours per day. So per day, you have to actually dedicate a certain amount of time in order to do that. It's with that in mind that the school is doing what it does. It's trying to prepare him now. So I said, that's why you have to have your clean uniform. That's why you go to morning mass. That's why you start the school day the way you do. That's why you do reading and writing and arithmetic. They even learn Latin, music theory, art theory, mythology, memorization of poetry, long-form stuff. Sometimes, I think Ambrose last year, he recited a poem that was like 7 minutes long in front of an audience of people, in front of a bunch of adults. They have physical exertion. The boys play football and rugby and dodgeball and soccer, baseball. They even have duties in class where, not just homework, okay, but where each person is assigned something throughout the week, so they have to go and do something. Once again, all of these things are selected carefully. They're selected with a great amount of intention to say, we're trying to sculpt something. It functions a lot like weights. And I was telling him, I said, imagine that your career is a 300-pound bench press, and you've got to lift that bugger. I said, can you do that right now? And he laughed at me. He said, no, I can't lift 300 pounds. And I said, okay, well, let's scooch back to college. Let's pretend that that's 200 pounds. Can you lift that? No. How about 100 pounds in high school? No. How about 50 pounds? And he said, yeah, I think I can do that. He said, I think I lifted 50 pounds one time. He can lift his brother. And I said, it's kind of like that. I said, it's like building muscle to where right now the work that you do, it can be frustrating because you're coming home and you're super duper bummed. You don't want to be doing that. You'd rather be doing something else. And you don't like that it's taking so much time. You know, it's about an hour to an hour and a half of homework every single school day that our kids have. And they'd rather, trust me, they would rather be playing something, right? They'd rather be playing games outside or playing video games if I ever let them. That's a weekend thing, but, that's what they would rather do. They'd rather play pretend or build stuff with Legos. But I said that hour and a half that your school is having you dedicate every single day to homework is going to become 2 hours in high school, 3 hours in college, and then you're going to have a full work day in your career. So you got to start somewhere. And the thing is, you can't cheat, because if you don't get the idea right now that you're actually going to do work at this moment, you're not going to do your homework, and you say, well, I don't need to do it. I can just get good grades on the test. I said, you know what, man, that's a risky business, because eventually there are some classes where participation actually matters more than maybe many of your classes now, or where daily homework matters more. I remember in college, I was in Bible college, and we had work every single day in this class. We had all of these notes that we had to take. It was Corinthian letters. So we're taking all these notes, and he had us read a book by Chuck Colson, and it was called The Body. And the rule was, you could have done really terrible, or even really good. Let's say you did great. But he had it set up in such a way that if you did badly, and you did not, and by badly, I mean you didn't finish the book. The requirement was you needed to finish it, cover to cover, whole thing. And if you didn't finish that book, you were 1 point below passing. It was essential that you read that book. Of course, I procrastinated. I waited till like the day before, and I'm going through the book, and I think I had about, maybe 6 or 7 pages left in the book by the time that the class started. And I was up super late, right, reading this thing. I've never been a good speed reader, but I was reading as fast as I could. And so we get to class, and at the end of the class, he said, all right, he said, you were required to read this book. And he said, it's an honor system. And right away, I was sitting there like, whew, man, good. I yeah, I read the book, I definitely did. Don't worry about me. And he said, but first we're going to pray. And there's actually science behind this about science where you sit there and you say that you have letters within kind of this word search puzzle that has sacred words that are in different directions and everything. And that even subconsciously, the fact that they're there, people have a lower tendency to cheat. Well, he just took out all the guns blazing. Okay, he did this prayer, and he was talking about God. I trust that the students who read it are going to be honest, of course, and they did a great job, and that you'll bless them, and that the students who did not do it and who are honest about it, be with them during this time of great sadness. But then he said something really bizarre. He said that if there are any students here who are so daring against the Holy Ghost to lie in this class about studying this and reading it and completing it, unleash the hornets of hell on them. And he didn't even chuckle. Like, it wasn't even like a laugh. Like, this guy was dead serious about it. And I'm sitting there, I was, 19 or something like that. And I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, no. Like, what is this? And I was honest. I said, I didn't read the book. I didn't pass that class. And so I told him, I said, you can't, there are times, whether it's honor, whether it's the fact that, you can only cheat so long before eventually it catches up to you. You can only cheat so long with 50 pounds. But when you get to the place where you're going to have to lift 300, you're just going to have to look the guy in the face and say, dude, I can't lift that. I haven't been practicing with smaller amounts of weight. I haven't been doing the smaller burden of homework that I had when I was younger that gradually and incrementally got more and more and more. And now I'm at a place where I that's not the life for me. I can't do that. He asked me, he said, he said, it's kind of hard. He wasn't making an excuse about it, but he was bringing up a valid point. He said, it's kind of hard when you've got so many things going on, because we've got the Y Center for Taekwondo. We've got church. They're training to be acolytes. I'm a thurifer, so we're pretty busy there. He was in soccer. He's going to be in basketball coming up, both him and Athen. And so we actually do a lot of things. We're a very busy family. We're constantly doing things out and about, and shopping and making food. And so there's always something to do, and it's really difficult to kind of scrunch that time in there. And I told him, I said, this is yet another proverbial truth, and that is that you're going to have to sacrifice something in order to do something else. That's just a truth, man. You're going to have to let something go. We have this idea in our modern society of multitasking, like we're masters at this, right? I can just imagine a scene where somebody's got two keyboards and, this intense techno music is playing and they're just clicking and clacking away on the different keyboards and trying to spread their mind in both directions equally. It's just garbage. It's just garbage. It's like trying to pretend that you can play yourself in chess. You won't be able to do it anyway, two things at the same time, with the same attention, the same quality. It's why we limit screen time on the weekends. It's why we go to bed early. It's why we don't play commercial radio during schoolwork. I don't even like listening to commercial radio while the car's on the road. I just say, why do we have these commercials blaring in our ear right now? Like, what's the point of that? I've heard this a bazillion times. I know the jingles. Give me a break. And it's why, most importantly in this conversation, it's why you can't play until you're finished. Because truth was, and he admitted this, of course he did, he admitted this, that when push came to shove, he just wanted to play. He knew he had homework. But he thought, I get good grades on tests, I'm going to make the excuse, I'm going to just not do my homework. And he was banking on the idea that I wasn't going to do my job either, in making sure, in fact, that he was following through on his obligations. But there's a bigger point here to that whole last one that he brought up, right? This idea of you can't play until you're finished. And that is the notion of delayed gratification. We live in a day and age where that's so foreign to anything that we do, right? Whether it's our phones, we think in our head like, what's that one person that played that one role in that one movie I saw one time or whatever? And they just immediately think, well, I'll just grab my phone out. It's a thought that's in my brain at the moment. And they go and they just look it up. You know, whatever random thing is coming to mind, they look it up. It's the same thing when they play apps and they play games. They're bored. And so what do? They go and do something boring, mildly amusing at best. It's also why we have an epidemic at this point of pornography and even masturbation. Because there's not an appreciation for delayed gratification, that you have to wait for something. You got to wait for that bang to that buck, right? You got to wait for it. You got to fight a little bit for it. Which is actually good for you mentally, physically, spiritually. And I said, the thing is, you're going to have to do your best right now. Even if it's not what you want. That you're going to have to prioritize in your life and say, you know what? I want to play Legos. I want to play the game. I want to get on the app. I want to watch TV. I want to go outside. I want to do all these things. And a lot of those things are perfectly fine. I know I harp on a lot about social media and I harp on about games, but the truth is, you know, I'm not a Luddite. I'm not an Amish person. Right? I play certain games. In fact, I play, 8-ball pool almost every day. And if any of you are 8-ball pool players, get on there and play me. I have a couple people actually from Facebook who play me. But the idea is you need to get what you need done first. You need to prioritize it. And know that if you do that, you're not only going to get to play, but you're going to get to do really cool things when you're older. And I told him, I said, you know, I can promise you, Ambrose, and I'm speaking, you know, I think this is a luxury that parents have, a father to a son, is that when he talks to his son, he can speak from a place of remembrance. And I remembered this, and I said, you know, I've never one time in my whole life thought to myself, man, I wish on that one Thursday when I was 11 that I could have played Legos instead of homework. But I do oftentimes regret the fact that I was playing Legos instead of doing my homework. And I said, I'm speaking from a place where I've been where you are right now. I've been there. I understand what you're going through at the moment. I understand the drives and the motivations and the frustrations that you have. And I can tell you, from the other side of this threshold of manhood, looking back, I don't regret not being able to play that one day. I wouldn't even remember if I did or not. But I remember that I wasn't doing my homework. So I said, you got to do your best right now. No more procrastination. And you need to do it just like we talked about with your career, your retirement, career, college, high school to present. You need to do it with a vision in mind. Not just for your college or your job, but even deeper than that. I said, you need to close your eyes and really, really think about this. You need to think about this in your heart. I said, you are in all likelihood, unless you become a priest, you're going to get married one day. And if you're a priest, you still have something ahead of you. You're probably going to have children, physical or spiritual, whichever way you cut that cake. You're probably going to have people in your life that are your children. You're going to have your health. And in each of these things, take the wife. You know, if you mess around, and I leveled with him on this. We talk about this kind of thing. I leveled with him. I said, look, if you mess around and you end up sleeping around with a bunch of girls, you're going to regret that, man. You're going to regret it, especially if she didn't. I can speak from experience. Again, from remembrance. If you're a priest and if you did not do those spiritual disciplines, it's going to bite you, man. If you've got children, but you haven't developed a concept of work or savings or value or priorities, it's going to bite you because eventually they're going to be coming to you. And I said, that's what happened to me. I didn't have those priorities when I was a kid. I wanted to play video games and stuff. I didn't even want to go outside with my dad when he was working on cars. He would be outside and, hey, Jeremiah, get out here and help me. My mom would even say, hey, go on and help your dad. And I'd say, I'm writing right now. I wouldn't go out there. And guess what? It totally bit me because now, I just replaced all the brakes on my car for the first time in my life this past summer. I'm 41 years old. I saved a lot of money, by the way. If you're somebody who's never done that and you don't know how to do it, find somebody who can teach you. You're going to save just a butt ton of money, okay? But the truth is, those are things that I didn't develop as a kid that over the years have cost me collectively thousands of dollars. Even my health. Smoking started when I was like 17 years old. Junk food started when I was born. Like amusements, right? Nintendo was a real deal. Nintendo was a real thing in my life. And those things impacted me. I'm somebody who struggled with my weight for a long time. I get my blood work done at the VA. I know what's going on with me. I know the concerns that they've had. I know the injuries that I've incurred because of my weight. And all of that is because I didn't have a long view. I didn't have a long vision, an idea of what I wanted to be, who I wanted to be, who I wanted to be with, what I wanted to do. I was totally caught up in the moment. No concept of delayed gratification. And this is hard. I mean, as I said, it's hard. We live in a secular and technocratic age. Sex, drugs, junk food, amusements. And it's funny because I was actually reading something recently. Back in 1910, there was a guy named Father Lassance, and he claimed this. He said that there's an insatiable thirst for enjoyment, a greedy lust of pleasure. It's one of the most devastating distempers of our generation. And I thought, oh, what he would say now. Right? Oh, my gosh. If he's talking about this greedy lust for pleasure, this thirst for enjoyment, devastating distempers of our generation, like what would he say at this point in the 21st century? I only laugh because I'd otherwise cry. And look, again, none of these things in and of themselves are bad, but everything has its due order. Everything has its time, its place, its measure. Due order, right? Did you get your homework done? Time. Are you staying up all night? Are your eyeballs burning out of your sockets because you're sitting there playing some app, watching PewDiePie or something? And this is actually something that they learned over the summer because I woke up. I don't even know what caused me to wake up. I don't know if it's the dog or the cat jumped on my face or something. But I get up and I go walking downstairs. And as soon as I turn the corner, you just got to imagine this. It's hilarious. I turn the corner and there's Ambrose and Athen. Both of them are laying downstairs. And they're both on the couch, which was kind of weird to me. And I'm kind of looking at them. I'm about, 7-8 feet away. I can see them clear as day. And Ambrose, there's a glow, this blue glow up at their face. It's like 2, 3 in the morning, something like that. And this blue glow. And Ambrose looks up like a deer in headlights, man. And he goes booking. He hops up off of the couch, runs all the way across the room, jumps up onto this other chair, puts the blankets over him, and acts like he's sleeping. And I'm thinking, dude, I saw the whole thing. Like, you should have done that 20 seconds ago when you heard me starting to walk upstairs. I'm literally looking at you. I could have drawn a picture of it, painted something. It said, so much time was going by. But come to find out, they were playing games. They had snuck the iPad, and they would hide it right there in the cushions of the couch. And when I'd go to bed, they'd be all cool with me. Hey, mainly Athen, but he'd say, hey, Papa, I'll put on the alarm for you. Don't you worry. I got the lights off. Good night. I love you, Papa. And then they'd sneak over and start playing those video games. And we were wondering what was up. Because my mom comes to town, and Athen was just exhausted this time. She's visiting. My brother's with her. And he's just totally blown out, right? Totally exhausted out of his mind. And we thought maybe he was sick. I mean, we'd tell him to stand up, and he'd get up, and then he'd fall back asleep. And we'd say, dude, bro. We're just kind of shaking him and everything. He's doing this. Man, he'd been doing that whole iPad thing under the couch for like 2 weeks. Bro was totally being sneaky, okay? But are you staying up all night? Are things done in due order? Are things done in proper time? What is the place wherein this is happening? Is it fitting and appropriate for the setting? And what measure? Are you indulging in it? And when it comes to that, it's all a matter of time, because time is limited. We're mortals. We're all going to die. One day I will die. One day Ambrose will die. We'll be buried in the ground. Our time is fleeting. And the thing is, we know this in a way that a lot of families don't, because we lost Samantha. Sometimes it comes to you totally by surprise. You don't anticipate it. Not in your wildest nightmares would you ever imagine something like that. And to happen so quickly. Nothing you could do about it. People die in accidents. We were talking recently, and he said, I told him to put his seatbelt on. We were going around the corner. It's not even a quarter mile up the road. We have 2 turns to make to get to this gas station. And I told him to put on his seatbelt. And he said, well, we're only going around the corner. And I'm like, do you think that it's less probable that there could be an accident there than if we were 10 feet ahead? Like the idea of an accident is that it's an accident. You don't know. And we live in a city. We had a car not long ago blow right through a yield sign and slammed into another car, flipped over, and was rolling down the road. That happens. Our car was totaled by a crazy lunatic that fled the scene. This happens. I would have never imagined. The car was parked on the street. We went to the city, and I told them, I said, I'm telling you this whole story. I told them the whole story. And in fact, Grand Rapids, you are an amazing city to live in. Not long after we went and talked to the city commission during public comment, they brought people down, and they put those speed humps back in. I'll make a video specifically about the speed humps and thanking them. May even have the whole family go down and thank them for doing that for us. They even called us and said that they kind of put my name along with a bunch of the orders for different streets, in fact, to associate it with the efforts that we did. But the idea is, when I went, I said, I'm not here to complain about my car. I mean, I am in a way, but fundamentally, my main complaint is it could have been one of my children. It could have been any of the children on our block. These kind of tragedies happen. And there's truth to this. It's a quote that I found. It said, the smiling, careless, innocent days of childhood are but brief. Swiftly do they pass away, almost before the young man has begun to learn how great it is, or to prize them as they ought. It reminded me of a time where Samantha and I, when we were in London for her Make-A-Wish trip, and we're sitting there on a bridge over the River Thames, and it was a beautiful night. And in fact, time was slipping away. We got in trouble with Mama because I think we got back and it was midnight. Big Ben's just bonging at us and everything. The bells are going crazy. But we were watching as boats would pass by, and you can see the lights from London twinkling off of the water. And we watched the boats that would go beneath us while we're on this bridge talking to each other about life, in fact. About a phrase called memento mori. It's a phrase that I've always cherished my whole life. Well, my whole adult life. And it means remember your death. And we were talking about death, in fact. And we're watching these boats, and we started counting how long it would take, not only for the boats to be out of view, but for there to be no evidence any longer in the river that they were there in the first place. And we started thinking about that, about life, and that's how we are. We come with a splash, okay? Cute little babies, like little Lucian. And then you get bigger, and you cause a ruckus and everything else. You leave your footprint for a while, but eventually you go, and eventually, however that eventually is. Sometimes it's 90 years old. Sometimes it's 12. Sometimes it's within 4 or 5 days. And eventually, the evidence of the knowledge that you ever existed is gone. So I told him, I said, what do you got to do then? What do you have to do? Number one, in all things, do your best. Give it everything you got, man. You got one life. There's no redos here. When that time's gone, it's gone. You got to focus. Give it your attention. Give it your intention. Prioritize. In fact, grow accustomed to the idea of delayed gratification. That you fight hard for something, and when you finally get it, there's this kind of cathartic thing that happens to you. Be active. Dedicate yourself to God. And in the end, and I wrote this down, flee from the enemy of your destiny. Because in its most basic form, you can play and you can have fun, but just make sure you do your homework first. And it reminded me of a poem. But it's a poem by Longfellow. And it reads like this. In the world's broad field of battle, a bivouac of life, be not lie dumb, driven cattle, be a hero in the strife. Trust no future, however pleasant. Let the dead past bury its dead. Act in the living present, heart within and God overhead. Let us then be up and doing, with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait. And I thought that it was so good to think of it that way. You know, you're achieving things, but yet you're still pursuing, and you're learning to work really hard, and you're learning to wait. And he almost cried. In fact, he started to. And I told him, I said, no. I said, you don't need to cry about this. We don't, there's no prohibiting crying. We've cried, we're a crying family, right? We've been through a lot of stuff, man. Like, tear ducts are there for a reason. And we think that it's a good thing to cry. But I said, close your eyes, envision yourself, envision your future, envision your loved ones, and then resolve in your heart that you're going to do them right. You're going to do yourself right. And do it today. No procrastination. Do it right now. In your heart, resolve right now. In this room. And always remember this day. And he said, yes, sir. And he went and he did his homework. I love Ambrose with all of my heart. He's an amazing child, and I'm proud to say that I'm his father. In fact, I told all the kids that recently around the dinner table. We had food. We had Spanish chicken and potatoes. It was an awesome name day for Teresa, or Saint Teresa of Avila. And I told them afterward, I said, you know, you guys don't know how special you are. And the kind of crazy stuff that you've been through. And that even though you've been through all of these just extremely dramatic and traumatic things, you still know how to have fun. You laugh every day. You play, romp around. You're super silly, little jokesters. But you've seen some pretty terribly rotten things. And as much as it pains me to say that you've been through it, I'm glad that I was there with you. And more important than that, I'm glad that you were there with me. Because you've made me a better man. And I hope that I can be a dad that when you're older, that you're not only proud of, and not only that you would honor even in your older age and stuff, but that you would consider me a friend in an adult, manly sense. That you would say, look, he's not just my dad, but he's my friend. We've been through a lot. Because already at your little ages like this, that's how I feel about you.
Love this video? What a coincidence! I do too! Now head on over to PaleocratDiaries.com for more videos, blogs, parodies, and reviews, even Team Tiny Dancer stuff. And don't forget to check out our new members and services pages. It's how I pay for my kids to attend Catholic school. Until next time, Memento Mori.